So let me just walk you through what they are, because these 5 core principles are at the bedrock of everything we have decided to do within the Trading Academy. These 5 principles, let's begin with the first one. The first one is knowledge, and this is the ability to take new information and put it into your brain. And in order for us to give you knowledge, there's a few things that we did. The first thing we did is we created courses. And so all of the instructors here went through a very long journey with us in creating these courses. And essentially what we did was we did something that had never been done, is we took a profitable trader, aka Simon Pullen, for example, and he wasn't a teacher. He wasn't instructing people on how to do this. He was trading, as was Sid, as was Alex, as was Denny. And so what we did is we had to take everything they knew about trading and then convert that into a system and a curriculum that you could study. And that was not an easy process because there's a lot in there, right? I mean, Simon, but when we initially started working together with Simon, he'd been trading for over 16 years. So imagine taking 16 years and putting that into a curriculum, into a course. Well, that was the feat that we had to achieve. And so we did that. And there was one core idea that sat at the foundation of all the courses that we created within the academy. And it's this: I want to say most education institutions, but it's a bit of a blanket statement. Generally, a lot of people will focus on what you need to know. And the shift that we made when we created the academy was, instead of focusing on what you need to know, we focused on what you needed to do. And we have and we did have a very keen focus on practicality. And so when we first sat down to create the curriculums that we created that you can now study, it begins with the quick win program. The question is what do they need to do? Now, in order to answer that question, what's really cool about answering this question in education is that when you can answer the question, what do they need to do? Well, that also gives you what you need to know, because you need to know things in order to do them. But we're not just looking at simply acquiring information in our minds, but it's a question of a focused application of knowledge. What can I do with this information? Now, this is the very first pillar that sits at the foundation of the academy. Now, the second pillar is practice, because it's all well and good taking this knowledge and putting it into your mind, but then what do you do with it? How do you practice it? And so the next stage was creating a system for our students to actually take what we were teaching them within the curriculum and then putting it into practice in a structured way. And this is where the practice projects were born. So what you'll notice when you step into the academy is you are inundated with practice projects. Now, why? Because what we're doing is we are putting you into a position where you're converting what you've consumed into execution. And so many of us, especially in the world of YouTube and Spotify and all of these platforms and Instagram and TikTok, where we're just blasted with information, we can very easily fall into a place where we end up just consuming information. And it can lull us into a false sense of security where we actually believe that we're making progress. But the reality is that consumption of information is only practical when you do something with it. And so what we do within the academy is, whenever you learn something, the very next thing you do is you put it into practice in a very structured way, and we tell you what to do. Now, when you combine these two elements together, when you take knowledge and you combine that together with practice in a structured environment, what you actually get is you get 2 outcomes. The first outcome that you get, let me just write that down, is you get feedback, right? Because simply by executing what you've just consumed will give you feedback. And our structure allows for this. So we've got a few things. The first thing that we have is we have answer sheets, which means that students can compare their practice projects with answer sheets that have already been collated. That's number one. The second thing is we have what's called project posts. And this is where right now we've got thousands of these examples where you can go and you can compare your work with what other students have done. And this allows for quick comparison and quick reference. Just the very nature of execution, of taking what you have just learned and putting it into practice via these practice projects, that gives you this immediate feedback loop.